I want to go back to this call between Xi Jinping and Putin, though. Was there any concrete objectives that they've laid out that they want to, let's say, switch, change, adjust now that Donald Trump is in office, as opposed to, let's say, a Joe Biden being in office?
Well, I think they largely, it's a reaffirmation of their current strategic partnership. They are just reassuring each other this bond will last,
Mhm.
and I think it's important to do that. And as you know, no, regardless what Donald Trump will offer on the table, because Russia and China relationship has its own dynamic outside of, say, the Russia-U.S. relation and China-U.S. relationship. By the sheer fact that Russia and China are neighbors, they share one of the world's longest border,
Right.
and and they also happen to have the complementary economy. And they're, China consumes a lot of commodities that Russia produces, and Russia consumes a lot of manufactured goods from China, especially after all the European American products pulled out as a result of the sanction. Um, like even if they lift the sanction today, all these car manufacturers going to have a tough time in the Russian market, just for the fact that the spot has been taken. The Chinese EVs already started to eat their lunch in places like Southeast Asia, Latin America. Chinese EV came from nothing to be like 1/3 of the new vehicles sold in Mexico.
Mhm.
And this is like without sanction. And I think even if they lift the sanction on Russia today, those Western car companies are not going to get their market back. They're not going to get
Yeah.
market. They lost it. And especially when the Russian consumers start to familiarize themselves with Chinese consumer goods like cars, and like what they had, what they saw, they're not going to go back. And this is why Japanese automakers are facing pressure. German automakers are facing pressure. The only Japanese automaker that's still doing okay now is Toyota. Mitsubishi, Honda, Nissan, they're all in trouble. That's why they're all talking about merger together into a super company. But when you have three troubled companies merging together, you're just gonna get a bigger troubled company. So I don't
Right.
think that's gonna work out. So I don't think that's gonna work out.
Right.
But
It's
but
like,
this is
yeah.
also the kind of the challenge that a lot of the Western multinationals sees in China, because they see China, once they move into one field, they cannot compete. Like you said, during the peak globalization era, that's the same corresponded with the U.S. hyperpower. Globalization is good because then we're going to sell you McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Levi jeans. But now they realize, wait a minute, China is doing much better than us at this globalization game. Okay, maybe globalization was a bad idea. So it was just follow the money. Everything, if you follow the money, a lot of things just start to make sense.
No, I agree with you, man. Is China concerned about sanctions? I mean, Donald Trump has apparently jumped on this notion of tariffs. Tariffs is the answer to everything. That is going to be the way that America retrenches, that it gets its power back, it gets its groove back in the world. Is China overly concerned about this, or for the most part, sanctions have been so, have proliferated to such a degree that they've just accustomed to them, like they've already accommodated the sanctions? I mean, I guess I'm looking at this and looking at the Biden administration, who was passing all of these tariffs against Chinese products, and Donald Trump is effectively going in and threatening to do the same thing. What kind of
You
deal
know,
can China and Russia make?
you know,
I guess maybe, I'm sorry, China and the US. What kind of deal can these two countries make?
First of all, regardless what United States do. The Chinese are very practical people. They have survived under a couple thousand years of like centralized bureaucracy. They know how to get around a regulation and bureaucracy. They know how to get around sanctions. They are already, a lot of the Chinese factories are moving into Southeast Asia, for example. They move to Vietnam, Indonesia, Cambodia to get around the sanctions. That trend was started before the sanction, but it accelerated during the sanction, and they go to Mexico. BYD open factories in Mexico, and because Mexico was part of the NAFTA agreement. And remember, this is why Trump is not just threatening to slap sanctions against China. He also wants to slap 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada. Those are the two biggest trading partners of the United States, okay?
Mhm.
The top trading partner of the United States is Canada, Mexico, and China. So Trump wants to slap tariff on all of them. I mean, if that really goes through, this is going to cause major economic upheaval inside the United States. But I'm thinking this might just be his hardball negotiation tactic. When you haggle, you first raise your price higher, and so give you haggle room. And so China is preparing in any case for this tariff increase. But I think they are also holding out to make a deal with Trump. We're gonna have to see what Trump has to offer.
Well, that's a good point. I guess it's like, what kind of deal can they make? Is there any chance that the U.S. pulls China away from Russia? That used to be the plan. And somewhere along the way, Joe Biden couldn't remember the fact that was the plan, and got more belligerent. Is there any chance, any degree of possibility of the U.S., it's like, come with us. You're better off with us. Is there any, because what's weird about the United States is the Republicans seems to be less hawkish towards Russia, meaning they seem to care less about Russia. In fact, I would wager that at 3 a.m. between them and their God, some of them even like Putin. They hate China, or at the very least, the Republicans. It's a very weird dynamic where they can't decide which country they need to hate the most. Trump seems to target Xi Jinping more than he targets Putin, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's because China is a large. No,
it's not that complicated, Jamar. Russia, by many conservatives, is seen this white Christian nation.
Right? Oh, I see.
Whereas China is communist, it's atheist, it's not white. It's not white. And so I mean that's really the crux of it. But the thinking that somehow the United States can just snap a finger and suddenly turn Russia against China, that's wishful
nonsense.
Because like I said, Russia-China relationship has its own dynamic outside of the relationship with the United States, and it makes sense for the two to become friendly and good neighborly relations. And they're not competing. Russia and China, they're not competing. They work together. Like a lot of time people say, oh, China and Russia, they're going to compete for influence in Central Asia. That's not what happened, because China is not interested in projecting hard power. They are interested in doing business. So whereas in Central Asia, China is pouring a lot of economic investment, it's Russia that's still providing security. And so this is a very complementary setup. This is how they used to work in Syria, before that whole Syria thing fiasco. Russia provided the hard power, the muscle. China provided economic aid. This is how they work together. They're complementary. And U.S. What does U.S. have to bring? I mean, they have to. I think what the conservatives do want to do is they do want to wind down the Ukraine war, so that more resource can be redirected into confront China. That might still happen. We're gonna have to see, but I don't even see what can they offer Russia on the table in terms of Ukraine, because Russia is winning the battlefield. Russia is gonna carry out their operations until Russia is satisfied So this is not a negotiation from like kind of equal opposite but equal side. This is they're either they're gonna acquiesce to all the Russian demands, or Russia is gonna get them regardless. And then what's West bringing to the table? I mean, one thing they could bring is maybe lifting of the sanctions.
Mm-hmm.
And again, lifting of sanctions is good. It's even China could benefit from that, because one of the things that China wanted to do is build the Eurasian land bridge to Europe through Russia. Through Russia. So Russia is a very important link. And so China actually also want to see the conflict wind down in Ukraine, because that kind of put a damper on this whole Eurasian land bridge project when Russia has been sanctioned. I'm actually hopeful to see a solution to the Ukrainian conflict now that Trump is in power. But it's going to be, the issue is going to be resolved on Russia's turn.
Yeah,
That's what I think is going to happen.
Is there any changes that China is making with Trump is in office? And maybe I've asked this before, but I'm trying to ask it in a slightly different direction. I would imagine China has these long-term objectives. When they're looking out at the world, they say, okay, this is what we want to do. This is our objective. This is the direction that we're going. Is that affected by the US president that's in office at any particular moment? Or are the long-term goals immutable?
I mean, China's focus is always mostly internal. China is trying to develop China, trying to provide better, more prosperous life for its citizens. That's always China's primary goal. And what U.S. do often is plays the spoiler role, kind of put a damper on it, like what first Trump, but later Joe Biden tried to do. They haven't been able to do that very effectively. And for it's not what China would do different, because from Xi Jinping's perspective, China always hold out the olive branch. Like Xi Jinping repeatedly said, the Pacific is large enough, the world is large enough for both U.S. and China. We don't have to be enemies. We can be friends. Right. We can be partners. Let's help. Let's work hand in hand to resolve the issue of this world. So this Xi Jinping's offer is always on the table. It's actually up to United States to adopt a different stance, a different approach to China. And it's up to Trump whether he wants to go down that route or choose a more confrontational approach. From China's point of view, China always would prefer to work with a more cooperative United States without all these hostility. But if that's the case, then we'll try to work around. If U.S. decide to maintain the hostile stance, China will work around it. But they will prefer a more friendly relationship. So it's really up to the U.S. government to change their own approach. China's approach is the same. They're always open for more cooperative relationship.
Yeah. Can we go to North Korea for a moment? So Trump being in office, I get the sense that he wants to go back to this kind of deal making with North Korea. And from my point of view, great. I hate the fact that North Korea is effectively firing missiles into the Sea of Japan because the U.S. is basically being belligerent towards North Korea. From your take, though, and maybe not North Korea, let's go to South Korea. That's a better angle. The president of South Korea, from my understanding, had been held up with preventing federal investigators from getting their hands on the president of South Korea. Is he in custody yet? I got to be honest. I've been a little bit busy over the last few days.
He was arrested.
Okay, that's arrested.
So he held out for like for a long time. He held out for like more than 11 days, and there's like completely lack of coverage in the Western media when a president of a country, even though he was impeached, is being held up in his bunker, and his presidential security services refused to let the police to come in, and so the South Korean the office for investigation of corruption in higher offices, they had to mobilize 1,000 police to finally rush the compound. And then the President Yoon finally gave in. He said, "Oh, I'm not doing this as an admission of guilt. I'm doing this because I want to avoid bloodshed. I want to and it's really weird situation because his presidential security services, these people are supposed to be loyal to the South Korean state,
Exactly.
not to not personally loyal to one person who is in the office of president. And besides, his presidential power was already suspended by the parliament. And so this is actually a serious challenge to the South Korean political system, because they already shown their special forces and their presidential security services. These people may be they're not really being controlled by the state. They're not really answerable to the state, to the South Korean state. And so there, but he is arrested now, and I expect the legal proceeding will commence. I'm pretty sure President Yoon will try to drag this out as long as possible, because, like I said, he's a lawyer. He had participated in the previous 2 impeachment of previous South Korean president, so he knows every single legal details and legal proceeding. He will try to drag this out as long as possible. So I think his hope is for the public opinion to shift, right? Because immediately after the coup, the overwhelmingly public is against him. So he's just right now trying to drag this out. So maybe what happened during the coup will fade on the public memory.
Yeah.
and also allow him to remain the president, because as long as the Supreme Court of South Korea do not confirm the impeachment, his duty as president is suspended, but he's still the president. So this is kind of the game that he's playing right now.
What? So he's in custody, but he's still president as he's in custody.
Yeah.
That's astonishing.
They have to. The Supreme Court have to confirm the impeachment to remove him from the office, and the Supreme Court, there's that issue with staffing, because there's 9 judges, supposed to be 9 judges, but three seats are vacant, and so they, according to the Constitution, they need 6 out of 9 judges all agree to remove him. But right now there are only 6 judges, so if they're going to proceed, then all 6 judges have to agree unanimously. But among the 6 judges, there are some of Yoon's appointees. So this is a problem, and this is why Yoon's party was resisting appointment of new judges to those 3 empty seats. Because they don't want a 9-judge trial. They just want a 6-judge trial. So this is a legal drama now. This is going to continue to play in South Korean court.
Carl, this is insane. So the president is in custody, but South Korea can't get a new president because the previous president, they can't have the Supreme Court can't necessarily make a ruling on him because they don't have enough judges to make a ruling. Oh God, man, this is so weird. So where are they going to get the additional justices from if the president can't appoint them because the president is sitting in a jail cell?
Well, they have acting president, right? This is why the parliament was trying to pressure the acting president to fill those vacancy as soon as possible. Right. But when the acting president refused to cooperate, that's why they impeached the acting president. That's why 2 acting presidents got impeached in a row, because they refused to cooperate with the parliament to fill the vacancy of the Supreme Court. I mean, this is just it's a big court drama, big political process. This is gonna be a drawn out affair.
This have to see how a clown car. I mean, this is like a clown car of just nonsense. All right, so is the acting president allowing for the? I mean, this is so weird. 2 presidents, so it's not even acting. It's the acting president. So is he allowing Supreme Court nominees?
The parliament is not going to give this up easily. If I haven't followed the latest, because there's other stuff going on. But the part, if the if the new acting president is not allowing the seats to be filled, then he will be impeached too by the parliament. Because the opposition right now, they have the majority in the parliament. They're not gonna suddenly give up on this momentum. They want to make sure that those seats should fill so they can have a 9-judge panel to judge the president's case.
Just amazing. So there can be no presidential elections until the previous president is removed.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's the problem. This is why they're trying to drag out this battle, because by South Korean law, if the president is removed, then they need to have a snap election. But President Yoon is dragging this out because he knows if they hold the election today, his party is gonna lose. So his party is going to trying to drag this out as long as possible until this faith on the like people forget about the coup. This is their strategy.
Outrageous, Carl. Outrageous. Carl, man, thank you for this rundown. I deeply appreciate it. I always appreciate talking to you. I always enjoy these conversations. And I think the audience loves the fact that you can explain this stuff in a way with good temperament, despite the fact that some of the stuff is just outrageous. I cannot believe what is happening in South Korea right now. I have never seen anything like that. Like the notion that one president tries to overthrow the government, then hides behind a security detail. Then they can't get a new president because that president is dragging it out. And you can't even impeach that president because you only have 6 out of 9 members of the Supreme Court. And then to make it even worse, you can't even get new members of the Supreme Court because each acting president refuses to do it. And so they get impeached. And so you get up with 2 impeachments. Just astonishing stuff. Just completely astonishing stuff. KJ, man, thank you for this. I'm sorry, Carl Zha, I should say. Thank you for this.
KJ's a good guy. I don't mind.
Yeah, KJ is awesome. He's cool people too. But we're not talking to him. We're talking to Carl Zha. Carl Zha, he is host of Silk and Steel podcast focused on China and surrounding regions. Yes, surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Zha. You can follow his podcast on Twitter at Steel Silk In. And you can subscribe and support their podcast on patreon.com/silk and steel. Carl, man, thank you for this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamar. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Always enjoy these conversations, man. Thank you. Be safe. All right. I need to call this a bit early today. Tomorrow, I'm going to have Ritter on. I have another gentleman named Richard Solomon, and we're going to have somebody at 8 o'clock, probably Malik, because I think he's probably going to have a lot to say about the inauguration. But we will see. I have several appointments that I really need to get to this morning because the rental situation is going to change pretty quickly. And I'm going to have to find somewhere to live going on the beginning of next month. But I'm probably going to have shows over the course of today. Hopefully, I can get interviews lined up over the course of today. And so hopefully, I will see you guys later today. So I'm going to end this a bit early this morning. I'm going to say like it, share it, subscribe to it. Again, I'm hoping to see you later on today before the day ends. But you all have a fantastic day if I don't. And I will see you bright and early in the morning. I am going to say Jamal Thomas Morning Show. Signing off. See you guys in a few. Thanks all.